The night swallowed everything except the pain. Sloan Thatcher lay flat against the rocky Afghan soil, her breath coming in controlled bursts despite the fire burning through her left thigh. Shrapnel, 3 pieces, maybe 4. She'd dig them out later. Right now she had bigger problems. 70 meters ahead through the green glow of her night vision, 2 Taliban fighters dragged something heavy between them. Not something. Someone. She keyed her radio. Static. The fall had destroyed it 6 hours ago. Her fingers found the wound on her leg, probing with practiced precision. The bleeding had slowed. Not arterial. She could work with this. She tore a strip from her undershirt, wrapped it tight, and kept crawling. The body bag the fighters were dragging left a trail in the dust. Inside that bag was Commander James Harrison, her commanding officer, the man the entire SEAL Team 5 had declared killed in action 72 hours ago. The man she was going to bring home. Alone, because sometimes the only person who believes in the impossible is the one trained to make it happen. 96 hours earlier, the sun hadn't broken over the mountains when Sloan's boots hit the ground at Forward Operating Base Chapman. Coast Province, the eastern edge of Afghanistan, where the Hindu Kush Mountains met Pakistan, and trouble flowed both ways across the border. She'd been doing this for 9 years. 9 years of carrying 70 pounds of medical gear into places where the only thing heavier than her ruck was the weight of knowing every decision she made might be the difference between a man seeing his family again or coming home in a flag-draped box. At 5'3" and 118 pounds, Sloan Thatcher didn't look like someone who belonged in a war zone. The men on her team had made that clear from day one. She didn't care what she looked like. She cared about keeping them alive. The team room smelled like coffee gun oil and the particular brand of tension that came before every mission. 5 men sat around a plywood table covered in maps and satellite photos. They looked up when she entered. Most looked away just as quickly. Lieutenant Garrett Reeves sat at the head of the table. 44 years old, 22 years in the Navy, and a face that had seen too many friends die. His last medic had frozen during a firefight in Helmand Province. 2 SEALs had died before the shooting stopped. Reeves had never forgiven himself. He'd made it clear he didn't plan on trusting another medic anytime soon, especially not one who barely came up to his shoulder. Doc, Reeves said, not her name, just her job. You're late. Traffic was terrible, sir. Sloan dropped her medical ruck beside the door. 65 pounds of trauma supplies, pharmaceuticals, and enough knowledge to perform emergency surgery in a cave if she had to. What's the brief? Petty Officer Bryce Sullivan didn't look up from cleaning his M249 SAW. Brief is simple, Doc. You patch holes, we make them. Stay out of the way, and maybe you'll get through this deployment without getting somebody killed. Sullivan went by the call sign Kodiak, built like the bear with the temperament to match. He was Team 5's heavy weapons specialist, an unofficial skeptic-in-chief. Every team had one. The guy who questioned everything, trusted nothing, and usually ended up being right just often enough to be insufferable. Sloan had heard worse. She'd been hearing worse since she joined the Navy at 18. Noted, she said flatly. Senior Chief Duncan McAllister, call sign Flint, sat in the corner sharpening his K-bar knife. 47 years old, 25 years in the teams. The quiet one, the observer. He studied Sloan with the kind of attention most people reserved for threats they couldn't quite identify. We good to brief, or are we waiting for more commentary? Reeves asked. Sullivan grunted. The room settled. Reeves pointed to the satellite photo. Target is here. Paktika Province, 40 clicks south. Taliban compound. Intel says they're holding a high-value target. Our job is to raid, capture, and extract. How solid's the intel? McAllister asked. Solid enough. Local assets, confirmed activity. Thermal shows 12 to 15 fighters, standard layout, single-story structure, mud walls, limited escape routes. Air support. That was Petty Officer 2nd Class Collier Hayes, 23 years old, fresh out of training, still had that look in his eyes like he thought war was going to be something other than chaos held together with prayer and training. Everyone called him Rook, because that's what he was. Apache's on standby, Reeves has said, but command wants this quiet, in and out before anyone knows we were there. Sloan studied the photos, building layout, approach routes, probable casualty collection points. She was already running scenarios. Gunshot wounds, blast injuries, the particular horror of what happens when high-velocity rounds meet human flesh. Doc. Reeves was looking at her. You listening? Yes, sir. I count 3 primary casualty collection points based on approach vectors. You'll need to stay with the vehicles until we secure the objective. Reeves interrupted. Last thing we need is a medic getting shot because she wandered into the kill zone. The room went quiet. Sloan met his eyes. With respect, Sir, optimal trauma care requires intervention within the golden hour. If someone takes a femoral hit and I'm 300 meters away with the vehicles, they'll bleed out in 90 seconds. Then they better not get shot in the femoral artery. Sullivan didn't look up from his weapon. Sir's right, you stay back. We'll bring the wounded to you. McAllister's knife stopped moving. Worked different last deployment. Last deployment, we had a medic who knew what he was doing, Sullivan said. No offense, Doc, but you're not him. Sloan felt the familiar tightness in her chest, the same feeling she'd been swallowing since boot camp, since the first time someone told her she didn't belong, since the 100th time, since yesterday. She could tell them she'd saved 51 lives in 9 years. She could tell them she'd performed a needle decompression on a collapsed lung in the back of a moving Humvee while taking enemy fire. She could tell them she'd earned her place in this room through competence, not permission. But men like Sullivan didn't believe things they were told. They believed things they saw. So she'd show them. Understood, sir, she said. Reeves looked almost relieved. Good. We roll in 6 hours. Get your gear squared away. The briefing broke. Men scattered to their prep rituals, checking weapons, writing letters they hoped no one would have to read, making peace with whatever God they believed in or didn't. Sloan walked outside. The Afghan morning was already building toward the kind of heat that made you understand why empires came here to die. She found a spot against the Hesco barriers, pulled out her medical ruck, and began the same ritual she'd performed before every mission for 9 years. Inventory, check, restock, verify, tourniquets, 8, combat gauze, 12 packs, pressure dressings, 20 IV supplies, morphine, ketamine, the tools of her trade. The difference between alive and dead. Her hands moved with automatic precision, each item in its place, each piece of gear positioned exactly where muscle memory would find it when the world turned to chaos and speed mattered more than thought. You handle that gear like you know what you're doing. McAllister stood 5 feet away. She hadn't heard him approach. That was the thing about Flint. 25 years in the teams taught a man how to move like smoke. I do know what I'm doing, a senior chief. Didn't say you didn't. He sat down beside her, his own gear beside him. Said you handle it like you know. Different thing. Sloan kept working. Is there something you need? Negative, just making an observation. He pulled out his own medical kit. Every SEAL carried basic trauma supplies. You've been with the teams long? 9 years. Started with Team 3, transferred to 5 last year. 9 years. McAllister nodded slowly. That's a good run for a corpsman. Most wash out or move on by year 5. I'm not most corpsmen. I can see that. He gestured at her ruck. You pack your own kit or use the standard loadout. My own, I swap out some of the standard supplies for things that actually work in the field. Like Israeli bandages instead of standard dressings. Faster application, like carrying extra chest seals because sucking chest wounds don't care about inventory limits. Like knowing that the difference between someone living and dying is usually about 3 pieces of gear and 10 seconds of speed. McAllister smiled. It was the first genuine expression she'd seen from anyone on the team. You'll do fine, Doc. Sullivan doesn't think so. Sullivan thinks everyone's incompetent until they prove otherwise, including himself on bad days. McAllister stood. But here's what I know. You move like someone who's done this before. Your hands don't shake when you handle your gear, and you've got that look. What look? The look people get when they've seen the elephant and decided to go back for another round anyway. He shouldered his pack. That's either bravery or insanity. Both work in this job. He walked away before Sloan could respond. She went back to her inventory. But something had shifted. Not much, just enough to matter. One ally. In a room full of skeptics, one ally might be enough. The patrol rolled out at 1400 hours. 4 vehicles, 12 SEALs, 1 mission. Sloan rode in the 3rd Humvee squeezed between her medical ruck and boxes of ammunition. The landscape outside was moonscape meets biblical apocalypse. Rocks, dust, mountains that looked like God had crumpled the earth and forgot to smooth it back out. Afghanistan had a way of making everything else feel small. 4 hours into the patrol, the temperature hit 118 degrees. The Humvees didn't have air conditioning. Heat turned the vehicles into mobile ovens. Sweat soaked through body armor. Dust coated everything. Hayes sat across from Sloan, his face pale beneath the dust. You good, Rook? Sullivan asked from the front seat. Yeah, just hot. We're all hot. Drink water. Hayes fumbled for his camelback, took a long pull. 30 seconds later, he was fumbling for it again. Sloan watched him. Training kicked in before thought. Pale skin despite the heat. excessive thirst, slight confusion in his movements. "Rook," she said, "look at me." He turned. His eyes had that glassy quality, the one that came right before things went very bad. "How much water you drink in the last hour?" "I don't know. A lot. Can't stop being thirsty." Sloan keyed her radio. "Sir, we need to stop." Reeves's voice crackled back. "Negative. We're 10 clicks from objective. We maintain timeline. Sir Hayes is presenting with heat stroke. If we don't cool him down now, he'll be seizing in 15 minutes. Silence on the radio. "Doc, are you sure?" Sloan looked at Hayes. His breathing was getting faster. Shallow. His hands were starting to tremor. "I'm sure, sir." More silence. Then, "All vehicles halt. 5 minutes. Thatcher, make it quick." The convoy stopped. Sloan had Hayes out of the Humvee in seconds. The other SEALs gathered around weapons, outscanning the horizon for threats that didn't care about medical emergencies. She laid Hayes in the shade of the vehicle, pulled out wet cloths she'd prepared that morning, pressed them against his neck, his wrists, his forehead, anywhere the blood ran close to the surface. "Rook, I need you to focus. Tell me your name." "Collier." "Hayes?" "Good. Tell me where you are." Afghanistan." His core temperature had to be north of 104, maybe 105. She needed to get it down fast. "Sullivan, I need his armor off, now. We're in a potential hot zone, and he's in definite heat stroke. His organs are cooking. Armor off, now." Sullivan looked at Reeves. Reeves nodded. They stripped Hayes's body armor. Sloan doused him with water from a camelback, created evaporative cooling. Checked his pulse. 130 beats per minute. Too high. She pulled an IV kit from her ruck. Found a vein on the first try despite the bouncing Humvee ride that morning. Saline flowed, cool fluids to bring his core temperature down from the inside. "Talk to me, Rook. Stay with me." I'm here, Doc." "Good. Keep talking. Tell me about home. Where you from?" "Georgia. Small town. You wouldn't know it." "Try me." "Dalton, North Georgia, mountains." Sloan kept working, checking vitals, monitoring temperature. The training was so deep it was instinct now. Her hands knew what to do before her brain finished processing the problem. 5 minutes became 7. 7 became 10. Hayes's pulse dropped to 100. His skin color improved from gray to something closer to human. "How you feeling?" "Better. Embarrassed." "Don't be. Heat stroke doesn't care how tough you are. It just cares about physics." She checked the IV flow. "You're going to be okay. But you need to take it easy the rest of the day." Reeves appeared beside her, looked down at Hayes, looked at Sloan. "Nice work, Doc." 2 words. But from Reeves, they might as well have been a medal ceremony. "Thank you, sir." "How long before he's mission ready?" "He shouldn't be mission ready today, sir. He needs rest, continued cooling observation." "That's not what I asked." Sloan met his eyes. 30 minutes of rest and continued hydration, he can function at about 70%. But if he goes down again. "Understood." Reeves raised his voice. "Sullivan, Hayes stays with the vehicles when we hit the objective. Doc, you're with the assault team." Sloan blinked. "Sir, you heard me? If someone goes down, I want the person who knows what they're doing within arm's reach, not 300 meters away." He looked at Sullivan. "You got a problem with that Kodiak?" Sullivan was staring at Sloan. Something had changed in his expression. Not respect, not yet, but maybe the beginning of doubt that he'd been right about her. "No, sir," Sullivan said. "No problem." Reeves nodded. "Good, mount up. We're back on timeline." The convoy rolled out. Sloan sat in the Humvee with her medical ruck between her knees and something that felt almost like acceptance settling into the spaces between the doubt. McAllister caught her eye from the front seat, nodded once. One ally had become 2. It was a start. The objective compound sat in a valley like a wound in the earth. Single-story mud walls, flat roof, 1 way and 2 ways out if you were desperate. Standard Taliban fortification, which meant it was either going to be easy or it was going to be a nightmare. Sloan had learned long ago that it was usually the nightmare. The team set up on a ridge 400 meters out. The sun had dropped behind the mountains, painting everything in shades of amber and shadow. Golden hour. The time when light played tricks and distances lied. Through her scope, Sloan studied the compound, counted windows, marked positions, identified potential casualty collection points. Because it was always about the wounded. Before the mission started, before the first shot, she was already planning for the aftermath. For the moment when training met chaos and someone's life depended on her being faster, smarter, better. Thermal shows 14 bodies inside, McAllister reported. Movement patterns suggest guard rotation every 90 minutes. Weapons, AKS. At least 2 PKM machine guns, maybe an RPG. Reeves studied the compound. We go in fast. Sullivan, Flint, your breach team. Doc, you're with me in the second element. Rook, you stay with the vehicles like we discussed. Hayes didn't argue. He still looked shaky. The sun dropped. Darkness came like a curtain. They moved. Sloan had done this 100 times. The approach, the controlled violence. The moment when training became reality and every decision mattered. But it never stopped being terrifying. They crossed 400 meters in 12 minutes. Not a sound, not a step out of place. Ghosts in the darkness. Sullivan and McAllister reached the door. Sullivan placed the breaching charge. Small, precise, just enough to blow the door off its hinges. Set, Sullivan whispered. Execute, Reeves said. The world exploded. The door vanished in a flash of light and pressure. Sullivan went through first weapon up. McAllister right behind him. Then Reeves, then Sloan. The compound interior was chaos. Shouting, movement. The sharp crack of rifle fire. Sloan's training took over. She moved with the team, weapon ready, eyes scanning for threats and casualties in equal measure. 3 Taliban fighters went down in the first 10 seconds. Clean shots. Professional work. Then everything went wrong. The floor erupted. Not an explosion, worse. A tunnel. Hidden beneath a rug in the corner. Taliban fighters poured out like ants from a disturbed nest. Suddenly, there weren't 14 fighters. There were 30. Ambush, Reeves shouted. Fall back, fall back. But falling back meant going through the door they just breached. And the Taliban had that covered now. Machine gun fire raked the doorway. Concrete exploded. Dust filled the air. They were trapped. Sullivan's SAW roared. Brass casings rained like deadly hail. McAllister moved like water smooth and inevitable, dropping targets with precision. But there were too many. An RPG streaked through the darkness. It hit the ceiling above them. The world became light and thunder. Sloan felt the blast wave hit her like a physical thing. She went down, ears ringing, vision swimming. Get up, get up, get up. She was on her feet before thought caught up with instinct. North wall, Reeves yelled. Breach, north wall. Sullivan was already moving. He slapped a charge on the mud wall. They didn't have time for precision. Overkill was the only option. The charge blew. The wall disintegrated. Go, go, go. They poured through the gap, out into the night, rounds snapping past like angry hornets. That's when Sloan saw him, Commander James Harrison. He'd been clearing the western room when the ambush triggered. Now he was cut off, separated from the team. 3 Taliban fighters between him and escape. Sloan watched it happen in slow motion. Harrison fired, dropped 2 fighters, reached for a fresh magazine. The RPG came from nowhere. 1 second Harrison was there. The next, the western wall of the compound exploded inward. Mud, fire, the sound of the world ending. The building began to collapse. Hawk down, Reeves's voice, hoarse with horror. Hawk down! They ran toward the collapse, but the Taliban weren't done. Machine gun fire from 3 positions. The team hit the ground, took cover, returned fire. 30 seconds became a minute. A minute became 5. The building was fully engulfed now. Fire reached for the sky. Sullivan got his thermal scope up, swept the rubble. No thermal signature, he said. His voice was flat, empty. No heat. Check again, Reeves said. Sullivan checked, shook his head. Sir, he's gone. No one moved. No one spoke. Sloan stared at the burning building, at the rubble, at the place where Commander Harrison had been 30 seconds ago. Her scope came up without her willing it. She swept the debris field, looking for something, anything, nothing. No heat signature meant no life. In this heat, with this fire, a living human would show up like a beacon. Sullivan was right. Commander Harrison was dead. We have to go, McAllister said quietly. Taliban reinforcements in 10 minutes. We stay, we die too. Reeves didn't move, didn't speak. Sir, McAllister said. Sir, we have to go. Slowly, like a man aging a decade in a moment, Reeves nodded. Fall back, he whispered. Then louder, fall back to vehicles, move. They moved. Sloan went last. She kept looking back, kept hoping to see movement in the rubble, kept waiting for the impossible. But the impossible didn't come. They reached the vehicles. Hayes stared at them with wide eyes. Where's the commander? No one answered. The drive back to FOB Chapman was silent. The kind of silence that comes after loss. Heavy, suffocating, complete. Sloan sat in the Humvee with her medical ruck at her feet. Unused, useless. She'd saved Hayes today, but she couldn't save Harrison, because you can't save the dead. The next 24 hours blurred together. Official notification, casualty report, the machinery of military death grinding into motion. Commander James Hawk Harrison, killed in action, Paktika Province, Afghanistan. 14 years of service. A wife in San Diego. 2 kids who'd never see their father again. The memorial service was scheduled for 72 hours out. Time enough for command to make arrangements. Time enough for the team to process. Time enough for nothing to make sense. Sloan sat alone in her quarters. A plywood box 8 feet by 10 feet. A cot. A footlocker. A picture of her mother she'd brought from home. She couldn't stop seeing it. The explosion. The collapse. Harrison there 1 second, gone the next. She'd seen men die before. 9 years in the teams, you saw death. But this was different. This was her commander. The man who'd approved her transfer to Team 5. The man who'd told her she belonged here even when everyone else said she didn't. Dead. A knock on the door. "Doc, it's Flint. You got a minute?" Sloan opened the door. McAllister stood there with an elderly Afghan man. Weathered face, gray beard, eyes that had seen too much and remembered all of it. "This is Khalid," McAllister said. "He's one of my local sources. Been reliable for 3 years. He has something to tell you. Might be important. Might be nothing." The old man looked at Sloan with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "American woman," he said. His English was accented but clear. "You look for your commander." Sloan's heart stopped. "What?" "The one from the fire, the building that fell. Commander Harrison is dead." The old man shook his head slowly. "No, not dead. The thermal showed I was there." The old man pointed toward the mountains. "I watch. I see everything. The Taliban, they pull man from fire. Still breathing. Hurt bad. But breathing." Sloan looked at McAllister. "Senior Chief." "Khalid's never been wrong before," McAllister said quietly. "But thermal doesn't lie either." "Thermal shows heat," the old man said. "Not life. Your commander, he was covered in rubble. Cold rubble. No heat signature, but alive underneath." Sloan's hands were shaking. "Where did they take him?" "Tora Bora, the old caves, 40 kilometers from here." The old man's expression was grim. "They know who he is. They will question. Then they will kill. Or sell to Pakistan. How long do we have?" 2 days, maybe 3, then he disappears." Sloan looked at McAllister. "We need to tell Reeves. Organize a rescue." "With what evidence?" McAllister interrupted. "An old man's testimony, against thermal imaging, against multiple witness reports that saw a building collapse on him. But if there's even a chance." "There's always a chance, Doc, but command won't authorize a rescue mission based on a chance. They need certainty, and we don't have it." The old man touched Sloan's arm. "I see your commander's face. I am certain. But I am just one man, one Afghan. Who will believe me?" He was right. Sloan knew he was right. An Afghan informant's word against official casualty reports, against thermal imaging, against the evidence of their own eyes. Command would never approve it. But sitting here doing nothing while Harrison died in a cave somewhere felt impossible too. "Thank you, Khalid," she said. "I appreciate you coming to me." The old man nodded, left. McAllister lingered in the doorway. "Doc, I know what you're thinking. Don't." "I'm not thinking anything." "Yes, you are. I can see it. And I'm telling you don't. You go off alone, you die. Harrison's probably dead already. Don't make it 2 casualties. And if he's alive," McAllister was quiet for a long moment, "then he's in the hands of Guam and the Taliban, and there's nothing we can do about it." He left. Sloan closed the door, sat on her cot, stared at the picture of her mother. She thought about Commander Harrison, about his wife, his kids, about the promise she'd made when she became a corpsman, to save lives, whatever the cost. She thought about the thermal imaging, about reasonable doubt, about the difference between probably dead and certainly dead. She thought about her father, Gunnery Sergeant Declan Thatcher, Marine Scout sniper, who taught her 2 things before he deployed to Afghanistan for the last time. First, how to shoot. Second, that sometimes the rules exist to be broken when lives are on the line. Sloan opened her footlocker, pulled out gear she hadn't touched in years, gear she'd promised her mother she'd never use again. A rifle case, worn leather. Inside, broken down into components, was a rifle she'd carried from home to every duty station for 9 years without ever assembling it. M40A6, her father's rifle, the one he'd taught her on, the one she'd promised never to use. Sloan's hands moved automatically, assembling the weapon. Muscle memory, 11 years dormant, but still perfect. Stock, receiver, barrel, scope. In 3 minutes, she had a functional precision rifle. She looked at it for a long time. Then she started packing. Medical ruck, supplies for 3 days, water, food, ammunition for the rifle she'd sworn never to fire. She left a note on her cot. Simple, clear. Gone to finish what we started. Then Sloan Thatcher walked out of her quarters into the Afghan night alone. Because sometimes the only person who can save a life is the one willing to risk everything. Even when everyone else has given up. Even when the odds are impossible. Even when it means breaking every rule. She'd been a medic for 9 years. Tonight she'd be something else. Something her father had trained her to be. Something she'd promised her mother she'd never become again. Tonight Sloan Thatcher was going hunting. And she was bringing her commander home, dead or alive. The mountains consumed her. Sloan moved through the Afghan darkness like something between ghost and prey. Every rock could hide a Taliban patrol. Every shadow could conceal death. But she kept moving because 40 kilometers ahead in caves carved by war and time, Commander Harrison was either dying or already dead. And she was the only person in the world who believed he might still be saved. The rifle across her back felt like betrayal and salvation in equal measure. M. Chaturdasmit, Aseshi, her father's legacy. The weapon she'd sworn to her mother she'd never touch again after Gunnery Sergeant Declan Thatcher came home from Afghanistan in a flag-draped coffin. That was 11 years ago. Sloan had been 16, old enough to understand death, young enough to believe promises could keep it away. She'd kept that promise for 11 years. Tonight she was breaking it, because some promises matter less than lives. The terrain was biblical in its hostility. Rocks that could shred boots, valleys that turned into kill zones, mountains that stretched towards stars that didn't care about the people dying beneath them. Sloan had studied the route for 2 hours before leaving FOB Chapman. Memorized the topography, identified waypoints, calculated distances and times with the precision of someone who knew that mistakes out here didn't get second chances. 15 kilometers the first night, rest during the day, another 15 the second night. That would put her within observation range of the Tora Bora cave complex by dawn on day 3. 48 hours to find Harrison, extract him, get back before anyone noticed she was gone. Impossible. But impossible was just another word for difficult with higher stakes. Her medical ruck weighed 65 pounds. The rifle added another 15, ammunition, water, 3 days of supplies compressed into a pack that represented the difference between prepared and dead. She moved through this darkness using terrain and training. Every 20 minutes she stopped, listened, watched. Let the night reveal its secrets to someone patient enough to ask. 6 hours into the movement, headlights appeared 2 kilometers south. A Taliban patrol, 4 vehicles, maybe 20 fighters. Sloan went to ground behind a boulder outcropping and became part of the landscape. Barely breathing, absolutely still. The vehicles passed 300 meters away. Close enough to hear voices. Far enough that darkness and discipline kept her invisible. When the sound of engines faded, she moved again. By the time dawn painted the mountains in shades of amber and threat, Sloan had covered 14 kilometers. Close enough to her target, far enough from the FOB that going back was no longer an option. She found a cave, small, defensible, hidden from aerial observation. Inside smelled like animal and earth. Outside offered a view of the valley below. Good enough. She set her gear down with the careful precision of someone who knew that organization was survival. Medical supplies here, ammunition there, water, food, everything positioned exactly where hands could find it without thought. Then she allowed herself something she hadn't permitted since leaving the FOB. She thought about what she was doing. Unauthorized absence, disobeying orders, potentially compromising operational security. If she was wrong about Harrison being alive, this was career-ending stupidity. If she was right and he died anyway, it was career-ending failure. If she was right and succeeded, it was still probably career-ending insubordination. But Harrison had been there when her father died. Lieutenant Harrison back then. He'd been the SEAL liaison to her father's Marine unit. He'd carried her father's body out of the ambush. He'd stood at attention during the funeral while a 16-year-old girl tried not to shatter completely. And afterward, he'd found her, given her his card, said 6 words that had changed everything. Your father was the best shot I ever knew. If you ever need anything, call me. 9 years later, when Sloan had enlisted, she'd called. Harrison had pulled strings, made calls, opened doors. He'd believed in her when the Navy said female corpsmen couldn't handle the teams. He'd vouched for her when commanding officers said she was too small, too weak, too female. He'd been there. So now she was here, because debts like that didn't come with expiration dates. Sloane pulled out an energy bar, ate mechanically, drank water, let her body process the night's movement while her mind processed the mission ahead. Through binoculars, she could just make out the Tora Bora complex, 15 kilometers northeast, the caves where bin Laden had hidden decades ago, where the mountains met Pakistan and sovereignty became negotiable, where if Khalid was right, Harrison was being held, and if he was wrong, where Sloane would have thrown away her career for nothing. She slept in 2-hour increments. Never deep, never unaware. The kind of sleep that was more rest than unconsciousness. When darkness returned, she moved again. The second night's movement was harder, the terrain steeper, the altitude higher, her body protesting every step, while her will insisted on one more, then one more, then one more after that. By 0400 hours, she was 800 meters from the cave complex, close enough to observe, far enough to remain unseen. She found a position on a ridgeline, good sight lines, solid cover, elevation advantage. Then she assembled her father's rifle for the second time in 11 years. The weapon came together in her hands like greeting an old friend who'd become a stranger. Every component familiar, every movement practiced thousands of times in a Montana field under her father's patient instruction. Breathe, Sloane, bam. The rifle doesn't care if you're nervous, it just cares if you're steady. Her father's voice, clear as if he were standing beside her instead of 11 years dead. She pushed the memory away, focused on the present. Through the rifle scope, the cave complex resolved into sharp detail. 700 meters, maybe 750. 4 guards visible, a K-47s, casual posture, bored. She swept the scope slowly, methodically, looking for what didn't belong, for the detail that would confirm Khalid's information. There, movement in the cave mouth, 2 men dragging something. Someone. Sloane's breath stopped. The man was unconscious, hands bound, face swollen and bloody. But the build was right, the height. The way he moved, even unconscious, had that particular quality of controlled strength that came from years of training. Commander James Harrison, alive. Khalid had been right. Relief hit her like a physical thing. Then reality followed immediately after. Harrison was alive, but hurt, maybe badly, and surrounded by at least a dozen Taliban fighters in a fortified position. Getting him out alive would require a miracle, or a different kind of intervention. Sloane swept her scope across the complex again. Counting, calculating, planning. 12 fighters visible, probably more inside the caves. Multiple defensive positions, high ground advantage on their side. A direct assault was suicide. But she wasn't planning a direct assault, she was planning something her father had taught her when she was 14 years old. Sometimes, Sloane, the best way to solve a problem is to change the problem. Her scope settled on the ridge opposite the cave entrance, 680 meters. A Taliban fighter with a Dragunov sniper rifle. He was good, positioned well, scanning the valley with professional attention. He was also the key to everything. If the sniper stayed active, any rescue attempt would fail. He had overlapping fields of fire with the cave entrance, could pick off anyone trying to approach. But if the sniper went down, the defense collapsed. Created a blind spot. Gave her a window. Sloane had 2 problems. First, she'd promised her mother never to fire this rifle again. That promise had defined 11 years of her life. Breaking it meant becoming something she'd sworn she'd never be. Second, she hadn't fired a precision shot in 11 years. Muscle memory was one thing. Combat accuracy at 700 meters was another. But Harrison was down there, dying, and she was the only person who knew he was alive. Sometimes choices weren't between good and bad. Sometimes they were between bad and worse. Sloane settled into position. Bipod deployed. Body prone, rifle steady. She ran the calculations automatically. Distance, wind, temperature, humidity, elevation. The math her father had drilled into her until it was instinct. 680 meters. Wind 5 miles per hour from the west. Temperature dropping. Elevation angle 12 degrees. Bullet drop would be approximately 6 feet. Wind drift 3 inches. Coriolis effect negligible at this range but present. She made the adjustments on her scope. Felt the clicks under her fingers. Each one precise. Each one critical. Then she settled in behind the rifle and remembered how to shoot. Breathing first. The foundation of everything. In for 4 counts. Hold for 7. Out for 8. Her heart rate dropped. 80 beats per minute. Then 75. Then 70. Good enough. The crosshairs settled on the Taliban sniper's head. He was looking the other way. Scanning the valley. Professional, competent, about to die, and he didn't know it. Sloane's finger found the trigger. 4 pounds of pressure. Steady, smooth. She thought about her mother, about the promise. She thought about Harrison, about the debt. She thought about her father, about what he would say if he were here. Take the shot, Sloane. When it matters, take the shot. She exhaled halfway, let her heartbeat settle between beats, and fired. The rifle kicked. The world condensed to scope sight and bullet flight in the eternal second between action and consequence. 680 meters is a long way for a bullet to fly. Long enough for wind to shift, for calculation to fail, for promises to matter. The bullet flew true for 679 meters. Then the wind gusted. Just slightly, just enough. The bullet passed 4 inches right of the target's head. Miss. The Taliban sniper spun, raising his rifle, scanning for the shot's origin. In seconds, he'd acquire her position, return fire, alert the entire complex. Mission failed. Sloane's training took over before thought. She was already working the bolt, chambering another round, resetting. But now the target knew someone was shooting, was moving, seeking cover. Moving targets were exponentially harder. Her father's voice again, clear, calm. First shot tells you what you did wrong. Second shot proves you learned. The wind had shifted west to northwest. She adjusted. 3 inches left instead of right. The Taliban sniper was bringing his rifle up. Scope to eye. 5 seconds until he found her. 4. Sloane breathed. Calculated. Adjusted. 3. The crosshairs found the target, leading him slightly, accounting for his movement. 2. Her finger was already pressing the trigger. Smooth. Steady. The way her father taught her. 1. The rifle fired. This time the bullet found its mark. The Taliban sniper dropped, gone from threat to memory in the space of a heartbeat. Sloane's hands were shaking, not from the shot, from the reality of what she'd just done. 11 years. 11 years of keeping her promise, of being just a medic, of running from her father's legacy. Ended in 2 shots. She felt like she should feel something. Guilt, remorse, horror. Instead, she felt nothing except the absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. The Taliban fighters below were shouting, running, trying to figure out where the shots had come from. Good. Confusion was her ally now. Sloane shifted her aim. The cave entrance. 2 guards standing there, looking the wrong direction. She fired. The first guard went down. Worked the bolt. Fired again. The second guard collapsed. Chaos erupted in the complex. Men running, shouting, firing randomly into the darkness. But they didn't know where she was, didn't know how many attackers, didn't know anything except they were under fire from an invisible enemy. Sloane used the confusion. She displaced, moved 50 meters to a new position, set up again, found another target. A fighter near the cave entrance. Fired. He dropped. Displaced again. The Taliban were shooting now, but at shadows, at nothing. Wasting ammunition on fear. Sloane had fired 5 rounds, killed 4 fighters, created chaos out of order, and in that chaos she saw her window. The cave entrance was temporarily unguarded. The Taliban focused on external threats, looking outward instead of inward. She had maybe 2 minutes before they reorganized, before someone took command and imposed order. 2 minutes to get to Harrison, or this whole insane gambit failed. Sloane broke down from her position, moved fast. 70 pounds of gear, and she was practically running down the mountainside. Training screamed at her, never rush, never compromise position. Never sacrifice tactical advantage for speed. She ignored all of it, because Harrison was in that cave, alive, and in 2 minutes the window would close. She covered 600 meters in 4 minutes, fast enough to matter, slow enough to stay controlled. The cave entrance loomed, dark, threatening, possibly filled with fighters she couldn't see. She went in anyway. The interior was exactly what she expected. Stone, darkness, the smell of men who'd been living in caves too long. And there, 20 feet inside, chained to the wall like something medieval, was Commander Harrison. He was unconscious, face beaten badly, breathing shallow. But breathing, alive. Sloane's medical training took over. She was beside him in seconds, checking vitals, assessing damage, pulse 120, too fast, breathing rapid shallow, possible lung damage, visible injuries, facial trauma, suspected broken ribs, dehydration, severe. She needed to stabilize him. Here, now, before they could move. Her hands found her medical ruck, pulled supplies with automatic precision. IV line first. She found a vein despite his dehydration. Started fluids. Quick exam, broken ribs confirmed. At least 3. She pressed gently on his chest. Harrison groaned, opened his eyes. Who? It's Thatcher, sir. Sloan Thatcher. I'm getting you out. Harrison's eyes tried to focus, failed. Dream? No, sir. Very real, very unauthorized, but real. She checked his chest again, listened. There. Decreased breath sounds on the left. Pneumothorax. Collapsed lung. The broken rib had probably punctured it. Air leaking into his chest cavity. Pressure building. Without treatment, it would kill him in hours. She needed to decompress it. Here. Now. Sir, this is going to hurt. She didn't wait for a response. Pulled a 14-gauge needle from her kit. Found the second intercostal space. Mid-clavicular line. The textbook position. Pushed the needle through skin, through muscle, into his chest cavity. Harrison gasped, tried to pull away. The needle went home. Air hissed out. The trap pressure releasing. Harrison's breathing immediately improved. Color better. Awareness returning. Doc, where am I? Tora Bora, Taliban held you here after the compound, but we're leaving. She was already working on his restraints. Bolt cutters from her ruck. The chains were old, Soviet era. They cut easily. Okay, I'm leaving. You're coming with me because you can't walk yet, and I'm not leaving you behind. Harrison tried to stand, his legs folded. Sloan caught him. All 118 pounds of her supporting 190 pounds of SEAL commander. Sir, I need you to work with me here. Can you walk with support? I can try. Good enough. She got his arm over her shoulder, took his weight, started moving toward the cave entrance. They'd made it 10 feet when the shooting started outside. The Taliban had reorganized, and they were coming. Sloan lowered Harrison behind a rock formation, unslung her rifle. Doc, you can shoot, apparently. Where'd you learn? Long story, sir. Respectfully, we discuss my unauthorized skill set after we don't die. She moved to the cave entrance, peered out. 8 fighters, moving in tactical formation. They'd found the dead guards, knew someone was inside. This was the part where training said hunker down. Defend, wait for rescue. But there was no rescue coming. No one knew she was here except McAllister, and he thought she was insane. If she didn't get Harrison out now, they'd both die here. Sloan made a decision that was either brilliant or suicidal. She'd already fired 6 rounds, killed 5 Taliban, proven she could shoot. Time to prove she could fight. She stepped out of the cave entrance, into the open. Rifle up. The Taliban fighter saw her, started to raise weapons. She fired. First target, center mass, down. Work the bolt, acquire. Fire. Second target, headshot, down. The remaining 6 scattered, seeking cover, returning fire. Rounds snapped past her, close enough to feel the pressure. Far enough that luck was still on her side. She displaced, moved to new cover, fired again. Third target, down. This wasn't precision shooting anymore. This was combat, fast, brutal, unforgiving. Her father had trained her for this too. Not just the careful shots, the chaos shots, the moments when speed mattered more than perfection. She worked through her magazine, 5 rounds left. 4, 3, 5 Taliban remained. They were coordinating now, flanking, professional. Sloan was outnumbered and they knew it. She fired her last round, dropped a 4th fighter. Then the bolt locked back on an empty magazine. She was out of ammunition for the rifle. The Taliban knew it too. They were moving in, confident, weapons ready. Sloan transitioned to her sidearm. Sig Sauer P226, 15 rounds, not enough against 5 fighters with automatic weapons, but enough to buy time. She fired. Controlled pairs, the way the Navy taught. 2 shots center mass, 1 fighter down. 4 remaining. They were close now, 30 meters, then 20. Sloan was going to die here. She'd saved Harrison, but they were both going to die. Unless. She pulled a fragmentation grenade from her vest. Last resort. Suicide option. Pulled the pin, threw it. The grenade arced through the air, landed among the fighters. They saw it, started to scatter. Too late. The explosion was everything. Light, sound, pressure, shrapnel turning air into death. When the dust cleared, 3 fighters were down. 1 remained. He was wounded, but alive. Raising his AK, Sloan raised her pistol. They fired simultaneously. His rounds went wide. Panic shooting. Hers didn't. The last fighter dropped. Silence. Sloan stood in the Afghan darkness surrounded by bodies and the reality of what she'd just done. She'd killed 13 men in 20 minutes. She was a medic. She was supposed to save lives. But sometimes saving one life meant taking others. She pushed the philosophy aside, moved back to the cave. Harrison was conscious now, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "Doc, that was necessary, sir. Can you walk?" "I think so." She got him upright. He was stronger now. The IV fluids working, the chest decompression making breathing easier. They moved out of the cave, into the night. Behind them, the Tora Bora complex was chaos, shouting, more fighters coming, but disorganized, confused. Sloan and Harrison moved into the darkness, away from the caves, toward the mountains. They'd gone 200 meters when Harrison collapsed. "Sir." He was conscious, but spent, the adrenaline wearing off, the injuries catching up. Can't keep going," Sloan assessed quickly. His breathing was failing again. The chest decompression was temporary. He needed real medical care, surgery, a hospital, and they were 40 kilometers from the nearest friendly forces. Impossible. She looked at Harrison, at the man who'd believed in her when no one else would. "Sir, I didn't come this far to lose you now." She pulled him upright, got his arm over her shoulder. 118 pounds carrying 190. Physically impossible. She started walking anyway, because impossible was just another word for difficult. They made 3 kilometers before dawn. 3 kilometers. Harrison barely conscious. Sloan's legs screaming. Both of them running on will and stubbornness. When the sun broke over the mountains, Sloan found shelter. Another cave. Smaller. Hidden. She laid Harrison down, checked his vitals. Not good. Pulse still too high, breathing deteriorating. He needed more care than she could provide in a cave. She pulled out her radio, the one she'd carried from the FOB, but hadn't used because she wasn't supposed to be here. Time to face consequences. She keyed the transmit button. Encrypted frequency. Team 5's emergency channel. Any station this net, this is Thatcher. Emergency traffic. How copy it static. She tried again. Any station this net, this is Thatcher. I have Commander Harrison. Alive. Critical condition. Request immediate case vac. More static, then a voice. Familiar. Shocked. Thatcher. This is Flint. Say again your last. Did you say you have Commander Harrison? Affirmative. Extracted him from Tora Bora. He's alive but critical. Collapsed lungs, suspected internal injuries, severe dehydration. We're 40 clicks from Chapman. I need help now. Silence. Then another voice. Reeves. Thatcher, where the hell are you? And what the hell did you do? Sir, respectfully, I'll accept whatever disciplinary action you want after we save the commander's life. Right now I need a medevac bird, and I need it 30 minutes ago. Another pause. Longer. Send coordinates. Sloan sent them. QRF launching now. ETA 90 minutes. Thatcher, is he really alive? Sloan looked at Harrison, unconscious. Barely breathing, but alive. Yes, sir, he's really alive. And how pun? That's a very long story, sir. 90 minutes later, she heard rotors. The Black Hawk came in fast. Combat insertion. QRF team deployed, securing the perimeter. Then they saw her. Saw Harrison. McAllister reached them first. Stared at Harrison like seeing a ghost. Doc, how? Later senior chief, help me get him loaded. They carried Harrison to the helicopter. The crew chief already had a litter ready. Sloan climbed in behind them. Started giving medical report while they lifted off. Reeves was there. Sullivan. Hayes. All of Team 5. They were staring at her. Not at Harrison. At her. At the rifle across her back. At the blood on her hands. At the woman who'd left as a medic and come back as something else entirely. Doc, Sullivan said quietly, those shots we heard from Tora Bora. That was you, Sloan didn't answer. That was some seriously professional work. Where'd you learn to shoot like that? She met his eyes. My father, Gunnery Sergeant Declan Thatcher, Marine Scout Sniper, killed in action Afghanistan 2008. He taught me everything. Sullivan nodded slowly. Gunny Thatcher, I heard about him. 93 confirmed kills. 94, Sloan corrected. The last one was never confirmed. Reeves was listening, processing. You went after him alone. Yes, sir. You disobeyed direct orders. Yes, sir. You engaged enemy forces without authorization. Yes, sir. You killed approximately, he looked at McAllister. 13 Taliban fighters, McAllister supplied, based on initial reports. 13 enemy combatants. Solo. Sloan said nothing. Reeves studied her for a long moment, then looked at Harrison, at the man who'd been dead 72 hours ago and was now breathing in a medevac helicopter. We'll discuss your complete disregard for military discipline and chain of command later. Understood, sir. But Thatcher, sir, thank you for bringing him home. The helicopter carried them toward Bagram, toward medical care, toward consequences. Sloan sat beside Harrison, monitoring his vitals, doing her job, but she could feel the weight of everyone's stares. The team had thought she was just a medic. Now they knew different. Now they knew that sometimes the quietest person in the room was the most dangerous. And sometimes the best way to save a life was to be willing to take others. Harrison opened his eyes, looked at her. Doc, your father, he'd be proud. Sloan felt something break inside her chest, something she'd been holding tight for 11 years. I hope so, sir. He would. Trust me. I knew him. And what you did, that was him. That was all him. The tears came then, silent, controlled, but present, for her father, for the promise she'd broken, for the man she'd saved, for becoming exactly what she'd sworn she'd never be, and being okay with it. Because in the end, promises mattered, but lives mattered more. The helicopter touched down at Bagram Airfield 72 hours after Commander James Harrison had been declared killed in action. Medical teams swarmed the moment the rotors began to slow. Stretchers, equipment, the organized chaos of people who saved lives for a living. Sloan stayed with Harrison as they transferred him, held the IV bag high, called out vitals to the trauma team. Didn't let go until a doctor physically blocked her path at the trauma bay doors. Corpsman, we have him now. You need medical attention yourself. She looked down at her uniform, blood everywhere, some Harrison's, some from the 13 Taliban fighters she'd killed, some her own from wounds she'd been too busy to notice. I'm operational. That wasn't a question. The doctor pointed toward a second bay. You're getting examined? Move. Sloan moved because arguing with doctors was a losing proposition. The examination took 4 hours. 3 gunshot wounds, all superficial. 18 pieces of shrapnel in her left thigh. 12 removed. 6 staying because extraction would cause more damage than leaving them embedded in muscle. Dehydration, exhaustion, contusions. The usual cost of doing business in Afghanistan. Nothing that wouldn't heal. She found Harrison in ICU 6 hours after landing. Ventilator breathing for him. Monitors tracking every vital, unconscious but stable. A nurse stopped her at the door. Family only. I'm his corpsman. He has doctors now. You did your job. Go rest. Sloan started to argue. Stopped. The nurse was right. Harrison was in better hands now than hers. She turned to leave and nearly collided with Lieutenant Reeves. He looked like he'd aged a decade in 3 days. Gray at the temples that hadn't been there before. Lines carved deep around his eyes. Doc, walk with me. Not a request. They walked through the hospital corridors, out into the Afghan night, found a quiet spot near the generator where the mechanical hum drowned out everything else. Reeves didn't speak immediately, just stood there looking at mountains he'd probably never stop seeing even after he left this place. Finally, 13 confirmed kills. Solo operation, unauthorized, completely against every regulation in the book. Yes, sir. You left your post, disobeyed direct orders, engaged in combat operations without authorization. Yes, sir. And you brought back a man we declared KYA, a man who's alive because you refused to accept what everyone else believed. Sloan said nothing. Reeves pulled out a cigar, didn't light it. You know what Hawk told the doctors before they put him under? He said Thatcher did exactly what SEALs do, saw someone down and went to get them. That's not insubordination. That's the job. He put the cigar away. You're not getting court-martialed, Doc. You're getting medals. Probably 2. Maybe 3 if the Admiral's in a generous mood. Relief hit like a physical thing. Sir, But Reeves interrupted. You're also getting a serious conversation about teamwork, about trust, about the fact that going alone almost got you killed and would have left us down a commander and a medic. Understood, sir. Good. Reeves's expression softened slightly. For what it's worth, Doc, what you did out there, that was some of the bravest, most skilled operating I've seen in 22 years. Your father would be proud. Thank you, sir. Reeves walked away, leaving Sloan alone with the night and the weight of everything that had happened. She slept for 16 hours, woke to find Sullivan sitting outside her quarters with 2 cups of coffee. Peace offering, he said, extending one. I was wrong about you, completely, and I owe you an apology. Sloan took the coffee. Accepted. That easy. You didn't know, now you do. We move forward. Sullivan nodded slowly. Those shots at Tora Bora, 1150 yards, under fire, wounded. Doc, I've been doing this 12 years and I've never seen shooting like that. My father was a good teacher. He must have been exceptional. Sullivan paused. Hawk's awake, asking for you. Sloan found Harrison in ICU off the ventilator, breathing on his own. He looked like hell, but alive hell instead of dead hell. His eyes opened when she entered, managed a weak smile. Doc, heard you've been starting wars without permission. Just retrieving lost property, sir. Harrison laughed, then winced because laughing with 3 broken ribs and a repaired lung was a terrible idea. Easy, sir. You're held together with surgical wire and hope right now. Noted. His expression turned serious. Sloan, I never got to finish telling you about your father. Sir, you told me in the helicopter about how he saved you in Helmand. I told you part of it, not all of it. Harrison shifted, grimacing. There's more. Things I couldn't say with the team listening. Sloan pulled a chair close. Your father didn't just save my life that day, Harrison continued. He made me promise something. Right there bleeding out, he grabbed my vest and said, if I don't make it back, find my daughter. Tell her the truth. What truth? That he didn't teach you to shoot for self-defense. He taught you because he knew. Somehow he knew you'd end up here. In the teams. In the fight. Harrison's eyes were distant. He said, she's gonna be better than me. Better than both of us. Just make sure they let her prove it. Sloan felt something crack in her chest. He knew, Harrison repeated. Even when you were 16, he knew you'd break that promise to your mother eventually. Because that's who you are. Who you've always been. Before Sloan could respond, her radio crackled. Emergency frequency. All personnel, this is base security. We have credible intelligence of an imminent attack on Bagram. Approximately 60 Taliban fighters. Target Commander Harrison. ETA 24 hours. All hands to defensive positions. Harrison met her eyes. They're coming for me. Then we don't let them get you, sir. 18 hours later, the FOB was a fortress. Every SEAL, every Marine, every soldier who could hold a rifle was on the walls. Harrison couldn't be evacuated in time. Too unstable, too critical. So they'd defend. Sloan checked her gear with ritualistic precision. Medical ruck, M40A6 rifle, ammunition. But this time there was no hiding, no shame. The rifle was a tool, one of 2 she carried. Reeves found her on the north wall as the sun set. Doc, you're position 3, dual assignment, medical coverage for north sector and precision fire support. Understood, sir. This is going to be bad. They want Hawk dead. They're bringing everything. Then we hold, sir. The attack came at 2300 hours. Mortars first, walking fire across the FOB, then the assault. 3 directions. Professional, coordinated, serious. Sloan was ready. Movement at 600 meters. 10 fighters advancing. She settled behind her rifle. Breathed. Fired. The lead fighter dropped. She worked through 5 more targets. 5 more kills. The north sector assault stalled. Dock casualties, north sector. Haze over the radio. Panicked. Sloan was moving before thought finished. Rifle slung, medical ruck up, running. 3 Marines down, shrapnel wounds, 1 sucking chest wound. She went to the chest wound, chest seal in 15 seconds. 4 in 30. Stabilized in under 2 minutes. The other Marines, packed, dressed, stable. Back in the fight. She was returning to her position when the radio exploded with traffic. Suicide bomber Eastgate. Sloan found a position, raised her rifle, saw the bomber running toward the gate. 20 meters. 15. She fired. The bomber dropped. Vest intact. Crisis averted. Averted. This continued for 90 minutes. Switching roles. Sniper, medic, seamless transitions. 8 Taliban down to her rifle. 4 Americans saved by her medical skills. Then everything changed. At 100 hours, a woman appeared in the operations center. Civilian clothes, American, carrying credentials that made colonels stand at attention. I'm Operative Bridget Calloway, SIBA, a Special Activities Division. She didn't waste time. We have a problem. Intelligence indicates this attack is a diversion. Reeves looked up. Diversion from what? From the real target. Taliban have operatives inside Bagram. Medical staff. They've planted explosives in 2 locations. Where? ICU, where Commander Harrison is being treated, and the pediatric ward where we're treating 23 Afghan children injured in coalition airstrikes. The room went silent. Two bombs, both on timers, both set to detonate simultaneously in approximately. Calloway checked her watch. 97 minutes. Defuse them, Reeves said. We can't find them. The mole hasn't been identified. We don't know which staff member placed them or where exactly they are. We know the locations, not the specific placement. Then we evacuate both wards. Harrison can't be moved. He's on a ventilator. Moving him would kill him, and the pediatric ward has 8 children on life support. Same problem. Sloan felt ice in her stomach. What are you saying? Calloway met her eyes. I'm saying we have one EOD team, one qualified bomb technician. He can search one location, maybe defuse one bomb, but not both. Not in 97 minutes. The impossible choice. Save Harrison and 8 American wounded, or save 23 Afghan children. The room erupted. Officers shouting, arguments, everyone with an opinion. No one with an answer. Sloan's mind was racing. Medical training, tactical training, everything her father taught her. Then it hit her. How complex are the devices? Calloway looked at her. What? The bombs. How complex, professional or amateur? Intelligence suggests crude, Taliban-made, timer-based. Probably Soviet-era components. Then I can do it. Everyone stopped, stared. Doc, you're not EOD qualified, Reeves said. No, sir, but I've seen enough IEDs to know the basics. And I've defused 2 in combat, small ones. But the principle is the same. This is insane. Sir, we don't have a choice. Send your EOD tech to the ICU, Harrison and the wounded Americans. I'll take the pediatric ward. You could die. Yes, sir, but those children will definitely die if nobody tries. Calloway was studying her. Can you do this? I don't know, but I'm going to try. Reeves looked at her for a long moment, then keyed his radio. Sergeant Palmer, get to ICU immediately. Bomb search and defusal. Doc Thatcher is taking pediatric. Sir. That's an order. Sloan ran. The pediatric ward was chaos. Crying children, worried nurses, the smell of antiseptic and fear. Everyone out, Sloan said, except the kids on ventilators. They stay. Everyone else evacuates. Now, a nurse started to protest, saw Sloan's expression, started moving. 3 minutes later, Sloan was alone with 8 unconscious children on life support and a bomb somewhere in the room. She started searching, methodically, under beds, inside equipment, behind monitors. 73 minutes. Nothing. She expanded the search. Storage closets, ceiling tiles, ventilation. 58 minutes. Still nothing. Her radio crackled. Doc, this is Palmer. Found the device in ICU. Definitely Soviet design. My BA timer. Red wire is power blue, is ground yellow, is trigger. Copy. I'm still searching. Find it fast, Doc. These timers aren't precise. Could go off early. 42 minutes. Sloan was tearing the room apart now, ripping open cabinets, checking impossible places. Where would someone hide a bomb in a pediatric ward? Then she saw it, a stuffed bear, sitting on a shelf. Looked innocent. Belonged. Except none of the children here had stuffed animals. Coalition policy. Sanitation concerns. She grabbed the bear. Heavy. Too heavy. Unzipped it. There. Explosives packed inside. Digital timer. Wires. Exactly like Palmer described. 36 minutes. Palmer, I found it. Confirming red power, blue ground, yellow trigger. Affirmative, cut blue first, then red, then yellow. In that order. You cut yellow first, it detonates immediately. Sloan pulled out her medical shears, hands steady despite everything, blue wire exposed. She positioned the shears, breathed, cut. The timer kept counting. 34 minutes. Red wire, cut. Still counting. 33 minutes, yellow wire. This was the moment. Cut it, and the bomb was safe. Or it detonated, and she'd never know she was wrong. Her father's voice, clear as if he were standing beside her. When it matters, Sloan, trust your training. She cut the yellow wire. The timer stopped. 23 Afghan children lived because a Navy corpsman trusted her training more than her fear. Sloan's legs gave out. She sat hard on the floor, shaking. Her radio, doc status, bomb defused. Pediatric is secure. Harrison, secure. Palmer got it with 18 minutes to spare. We're good. But they weren't good yet. The Taliban assault was still ongoing. And now they knew their plan had failed, which meant they'd get desperate. At 03:47 hours, the Taliban commander made his final play. Intelligence had identified him, Rahim Qasim, brother of the commander Sloan had killed at Tora Bora. He'd orchestrated this entire attack. Now he was making a suicide run. Literally, reports came in, single fighter penetrated the perimeter, wearing a suicide vest, heading toward ICU. Sloan grabbed her rifle and ran. She reached the ICU corridor as Raheem kicked in the door. He had Harrison by the throat, vest clearly visible under his jacket, 20 pounds of explosives, enough to level the entire ward. And his hand was on the detonator switch. Dead man's switch. Let go and it detonated. Sloan raised her rifle. Through the window, 150 meters from her position to the ICU, but she couldn't shoot him. The vest would detonate. Harrison and 8 others would die. She needed a different shot. The detonator switch. In Raheem's right hand, 2-inch target. Through glass, which would affect trajectory, at 150 meters, while her hands were still shaking from defusing a bomb. Impossible. She settled into position anyway. First, she needed to understand the glass. How much would it deflect the bullet? She aimed at a window panel next to Raheem, far enough not to spook him, close enough to test. Fired. The glass shattered. The bullet impacted 6 inches right of where she'd aimed, 6 inches of deflection at this glass density. She adjusted her scope, 6 inches left compensation. Now the real shot. Raheem was shouting, demanding safe passage, threatening to detonate. Harrison was calm. Meeting Sloan's eyes through the window, he knew she was there, knew what she was trying, trusted her. Sloan breathed, the pattern her father taught her, except she changed it, shortened it, made it her own. In for 3, hold for 5, out for 6. Heart rate dropped, 72 beats per minute, good enough. The crosshairs settled on the detonator switch. 2 inches of target, in a moving hand, through glass, at 150 meters. Everything her father taught her came down to this moment. She pressed the trigger. The rifle fired. The bullet flew true, punched through glass, deflected exactly 6 inches like she'd calculated, hit the detonator switch dead center. The device shattered, fell from Raheem's hand. He stared at his empty hand in disbelief. McAllister and Sullivan crashed through the door, took him down, secured the vest. Harrison lived. 8 patients lived because a 118-pound corpsman made a shot that shouldn't have been possible. Sloan lowered her rifle, started shaking for real now. Adrenaline crash hitting like a truck. Sullivan's voice over radio, "Doc, that shot. How did you?" She didn't answer, just sat down hard and let the shaking run its course. 3 days later, everything changed again. Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, California sunshine, ocean breeze, the smell of home. The ceremony was classified, small, need to know only. Rear Admiral William Garrett presented the medals personally. Navy Cross, Bronze Star with Valor. These medals represent courage under fire, the Admiral said. But more than that, they represent a new way of thinking about combat medicine. He pinned the Navy Cross to her uniform. HM-1 Thatcher has demonstrated that healing and fighting aren't separate skills. They're complementary. And when combined in one operator, they create something more effective than either alone. The Admiral stepped back. Effective immediately, your designated Special Amphibious Reconnaissance Corpsman, SARC qualified, sniper qualified, the first of your kind. We're building a program around what you've proven possible. Team 5 was there, all of them. Harrison in a wheelchair, but present. After the ceremony, Harrison approached, saluted. She returned it. One more thing. He handed her an envelope. This was in your father's effects. Came to me because I was listed as his SEAL liaison. Been holding it for 11 years. Figured now was the right time. Sloan opened it. Her father's handwriting. Maya, if you're reading this, I didn't come home. I'm sorry, I promised Mom I'd teach you to shoot for self-defense and then come back safe. But I also know you. You're too good. You'll want to follow this path. I didn't want that. Not because you're my daughter, because I know the cost. But here's what I learned in 20 years. The cost of not using your gifts is higher than the cost of using them. I taught you to shoot because I knew someday you'd have to choose. Between the promise you made Mom and the promise you made yourself. Between being safe and being who you really are. When that moment comes, and it will come, choose yourself. Choose the fight. Choose to be the warrior I know you are. Because the world needs people who can heal and fight, who can save lives and take them when necessary, who can carry both the rifle and the medical kit. That's you, Sloan. That's who you've always been. Use it well. Make every shot count, every life saved, every choice. I'm proud of you. Always was, always will be. Love, Dad. P.S. Tell your mom I'm sorry. But I'm not sorry I taught you. You were meant for this. Sloan read it 3 times, tears running freely now. Her father had known, had always known. Harrison put a hand on her shoulder. He was right about you. Sir, you were meant for this, all of it, and you're going to change everything. 6 months later, Naval Special Warfare Center, Coronado, 0800 hours. Chief Petty Officer Sloan Thatcher stood before 18 students, 16 men, 2 women, and all volunteers for the new Integrated Combat Medicine and Precision Marksmanship program. She'd gained back the weight she'd lost. The shadows under her eyes had faded. The visible wounds had healed. The invisible ones were healing too. Therapy twice a week, sometimes 3 when the nightmares came. But they were getting better. This program will teach you to do 2 things, she told the students: save lives and take them. Not because we love killing, because sometimes saving one life requires ending others. If you're not willing to do both, leave now. No one moved. A student raised her hand, young, maybe 24. Chief, is it true you made an 1150-yard shot while wounded? No, I missed that shot. Made it on the 2nd try. Why tell us you missed? Because perfection doesn't exist in combat, but persistence does. You miss, you adjust, you shoot again. That's the job. She taught them for 6 hours. Medical procedures, shooting fundamentals, how to transition between roles. At 1400, her encrypted phone rang. She stepped outside. Chief Thatcher. Sloan, Reeves, Team 5 deploys Syria in 72 hours. High-risk rescue operation. We need you. Sloan looked back at the classroom, at the students learning what she'd proven possible. Sir, I'm teaching. I have 18 students. I know, and that's important. But this is what we trained you for, not just to teach it, to do it. She thought about her father's letter, about using her gifts. I'll be there, sir. Briefing Monday 0800. Sloan went back inside. Class dismissed early. Study chapters 8 through 10. Test Monday. She went to her quarters. Started packing. Medical ruck. Rifle case. The tools of her calling. Her phone buzzed. Text from her mother. Saw the promotion announcement. Your father would be so proud. I'm proud. Come home safe. Love you always. Sloan typed back, love you too, Mom. Thanks for understanding. She finished packing, looked at the photo on her wall, her father in marine dress blues. She thought about the letter, about promises kept and broken, about the 11 years running from this and the moment she stopped running. Her father had taught her to heal when she could and fight when she must. He'd never said she'd have to do both simultaneously, but he'd prepared her anyway. Sloan shouldered her ruck, picked up her rifle case. She had a deployment to prep for. Students to train, lives to save, a promise to keep, not to her mother, to her father, to use it well, make every shot count. She walked into the California sunshine, ready, because warriors showed up, did the work, kept the promise, and brought everyone home, by any means necessary, always.